Hello everyone, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Roundup. This is the Wednesday edition in which we look at all of the crowdfunding games that launched on Tuesday. And Tuesday is generally the biggest launch day of the week. So these Wednesday editions are usually the biggest videos, the longest videos, and today is no exception. We've got 12 different campaigns that we're looking at. As always, the videos are bookmarked or tabbed, so if you're looking for a specific campaign, you can just mouse over the bar and find what you're looking for. If you are interested in a specific campaign and you find that out while you're watching the video, you can go into the description of the video, click on the link next to the game, and it will take you right to that campaign, so you can look at it further there, perhaps back it if you like. As always, the best way to support this channel right now is to like and subscribe. That way you'll be looped in when more of these videos are published, and as I continue to publish more kinds of content in the coming weeks and months. The first campaign that we're looking at today is called Dice Cards. As you can see here, this is a kind of a smaller production level. It's a roll and write game, actually. They had a $5,000 funding goal. They're already at $5,600, so they're funded. As we go down here, we can see it's by a publisher called Card Lords, and they have published some things in the past. Let's take a very quick look and see what they've done. Okay, so they've got these games that they've published in the past. Lucky Luau, Animal Chemists, Battle Goats. Battle Goats is probably their biggest thing that they've done previously. And one of the designers who worked on Battle Goats and some of the other games unfortunately passed away in 2017. Let's see. Tucker Smeeds is the designer that is continuing. Let's see, his co-designer for Battle Goats was Shannon Fife. So she was one of the co-founders of this company and sadly passed away in 2017. But I think Battle Goats is probably their most well-known property. So this is called Dice Cards, and what makes this kind of interesting is it's a roll and write game, but it is centered around different cards. So you see when you're playing, you're going to be using different cards. There's 108 different cards, which means there's 50 unique mini games. So depending on which cards you're using in your particular game, you're going to be doing different mini games, which I think is really cool, really unique. Select your cards, roll the dice, record your roll. Now, this is not too risky a campaign because it's a roll and write. So, well, first of all, let's look up top. This campaign will complete on April the 14th, and it will deliver in October 2023. There is a print and play level here for $5, so you can just do the print and play. Or if you want the physical copy of the game, you can do that for $24. That will also include the print and play. Shipping on this is $7. So for the physical copy, that'd be $31 with shipping. And then there's another copy. There's another pledge level that is 2 copies of the game. But this is essentially what you're getting here. I'll take a quick scroll down so you can kind of see the different, the look of the game and the high variability due to the different cards that you'll be putting into the game and then kind of playing a game that's made up of different mini games on your play, depending on which cards get used. So it seems like a very cool idea to me, actually. And it's not too expensive, obviously, and you can even go the print and play route. So, there we go. Is there anything more to look at over here on the Board Game Geek listing? Children's game, dice, print and play, dice rolling, paper and pencil, solo solitary game with variable setup. It is roll and write. And very quickly, they just say it is a super variable roll and write game for players new and seasoned. It's as simple as rolling 2 dice and selecting a number to record each turn, but that's also the tricky part. Only one number. Players attempt to get the best score by recording a single number each roll to one of 6 different cards they're playing each game. The game features over 50 unique cards, each with their own scoring mini-game. Dice Cards also works for large group play with point-based victory options. So, they list the player count at 1 to 99. A lot of the roll and write games do that, and you're just then limited by game sheets. So that is our first campaign this week. Dice Cards already funded. From there we go to Doomlings Overlush. Let me do a quick refresh on this. Okay, so they had a funding goal of $10,000. They had a funding goal of $10,000. They passed it. They handily passed it. They're already at $350,000. But this is a little bit of a different story in my opinion. So this is published by this guy, Justice Meyer. And as we can see here, he's only done one campaign before. Okay, which was for the original Doomlings. And his little bio here says, I lost my job in the pandemic. Now I have nothing but time in this card game, Doomlings. All I want is to score more points than my wife. Okay, so he produced this, kind of post-pandemic, like a lot of people, having to pivot in his life. But there's problems afoot with this. So this is probably a good one to be looking at through this video. The delightful card game for the end of the world is back with a huge new expansion. Okay, so let's just take a quick look here. You can see that it's got these card packs. There are these plushies. If we go down in here to, let's see if it shows gameplay. I mean, it's kind of a simple card game. For starters. And, the first part of it just came out in, the base game just came out in 2022. So last year, first-time publisher, first-time designer, all this, the whole shebang. Their very first game was published in 2022. It's got a 7.1 on Board Game Geek, which is, okay. Not great, but it's okay. And it's a very, very light card game, coming in with a 1.68 complexity. It has things like endgame bonuses, events, finale ending, hand management, move through deck, set collection, and take that. Right. So essentially, this is like a super simple card game. Players are going to have essentially 5 cards in their hand. Let's see if I've watched the videos, so if they're not kind of representing it here in GIFs, I can just talk you through it very quickly. Players have 5 different cards in their hand, and then there are these kind of like age cards, and you get mini decks. You kind of shuffle them together, so you have you create mini decks. So 3 different ages, and then kind of a terrible event cards in each group of 4 cards, and then you're going to shuffle those within themselves, so you won't actually know where the terrible event is. I forget what they call that kind of a card. But it goes in amongst these other age cards. And then, so you have 12 cards total, one of those kind of events within every 4 cards, and then the very top is kind of a starting card so that you don't get a terrible event during the first round. But you're just going to go around and play a card. And that's really it. You're just trying to accumulate different kinds of points as you do this. So it's a super simple card game. There's other card games around that are like this. That's all fine, but where this starts to go off the rails is when you look at the fact that they are now kind of doing this expansion for this. They've got this expansion box tier for $25 that includes more cards. But then they've got this all this stuff that they're pushing, all these collectibles, all these plushies. This is just a swag store. So they're using this very light card game kind of as an excuse just to sell a whole lot of merch. Which, that's their... people can do that. Sure, why not? They even have the first tier here, which is $20 just for plushies. Then they've got this $25 tier that is the expansion box. Let's see if we go into shipping. Let's see if they list shipping here. Shipping. Do they even list it? What do they say? Shipping and VAT charged after campaign ends. Okay, there's a table of estimates. Let's take a look at it. Okay, so for the plushie only tier, it's 10. For the mystery box tier, it's 10, which means that the total price is going to be $30 just for the plushies, $35 just for the expansion box, and then it goes up from there. So you've got this $50 pledge for the base game and the expansion, and the shipping on that is, I think that's the essentials tier, so it's a little over, it's like $12, so you're looking at $61 for that. You get a Kickstarter exclusive card set, plushie, and then it kind of goes up from there, and there's a lot more tiers that include a lot of stuff, including lots of playmats and all these plushies. The biggest one here is this $200 tier, which, first of all, it's getting expensive, right, for just this simple card game to have thrown in all this swag, but that's just the beginning. I think the kicker here is we go over to look at the original campaign, again, because this was the first time that this person ever created a game or ran a Kickstarter campaign. So it's always good to look at comments, right? Okay, so first he's got this huge ad here, an ad post for the new campaign. Fair enough. Pretty long. But if you start to read down in the comments, there aren't too many positive comments from past backers. Like this first backer says, most CCGs fail for a reason, and there isn't a lot of overlap in those interested in them and the board game community. The initial push might succeed because not everyone will read the fine print and just see a game they already like, but I predict this will still backfire and people will lose what little faith they had in you. But if this is the hill you choose to die on, that's exactly what you get. We don't care, stop marketing here. So essentially, he's posting a lot of marketing pledges that are just going to all the backers of the old campaign. But, if you read through these, you see that people are not happy about this. So the Ultimate tier contains the entire Overlush collection with 173 plus cards and 2 mystery expansion boxes for an additional 120 cards. Does that mean we get 120 duplicate cards since we're already getting the entire collection, or is there an additional 120 cards missing from what I thought would be the entire Overlush collection? What about a tier that is just an upgrade for existing Doomlings owners? No base game, no mystery packs, no gold packs, no plushies, no game mats, only the complete collection of new Overlush cards. The $200 tier is overbloated and useless for us who just want the new cards. Now, to be fair, I think that is what the $25 tier is. So this expansion box tier, maybe that didn't exist originally. And the other thing is that, people who like to complain and be loud are, those are the people you're going to see first. But if you look through a lot of these comments of the first campaign, I just don't see too many happy backers. I see a lot of angry people. And I don't know. When you combine that with the fact that this is the first thing that this guy's ever designed, and now he's going to do an expansion, and a lot of what he's done are all these kind of like mystery packs, these kind of like 15 card packs, and he's got a lot of pledges that traffic in these kind of 15 card packs, these holofoils, these gold packs. It feels less like he's created a card game and more like he's stumbled upon an opportunity to try to make money, where he's putting out all of these, encouraging people to buy a lot of these extra packs and like throw them into the games, and then all these plushies, and the fact that no one who backed the game the first time around seems to be kind of happy with it. Again, maybe this is just what I'm seeing, but this is what I'm seeing. So this is the kind of reason that I think this video series exists, is just maybe for the uninitiated who might think, oh, cool, there's this cute little card game and I can get a stuffed animal with it. Just take a deeper look and kind of ask yourself how much you trust the game designer, in this case a relatively untested game designer, and the publishing entity, and kind of what they're doing, in this case selling a lot of swag. So you could still take a look at this, and maybe it's for you, and if you do want to back it, by all means go ahead and do that. But this kind of has a lot of red flags for me, and it feels like they're trying to just make a lot of money. Like he created this card game during the pandemic. He happened to stumble upon a formula, probably because it was a light game and it did really well, and it felt like he won the lottery, and so now he's going back to the money machine, and he's created an expansion, and he's kind of buoyed this whole thing with these small card packs and lots of merch, including all these plushies. So this is not something that I would back, and I would recommend anyone else who's considering backing something like this to take a step back and think about it before you do. There are plenty of light, accessible card games out there to back that don't have all of this baggage, literally physical baggage, or this kind of past baggage. And I mean, those kinds of card games you see every week. There are smaller publishers putting out, accessible card games like that. So maybe pick a different one. Moving on, we've got Drums of War, the Epic Battle Game. And this is from a publisher called Eclipse Editorial. And it's this game down here, Drums of War Enclave, which is a 1 to 2 player card game. And I think I might need to refresh this. Okay. We can see this one had a funding goal of $47, almost $4,800. They're currently at $12.8 thousand, so they're funded. They're going to fund. If we want to see what else they've done, and this is obviously a company out of Madrid, Spain, which if you're in the U.S., that should just make you put you on high alert to take a look at the shipping, because if something's being done through a smaller publisher and it's kind of international, the shipping costs can go way up. So they've published a few games before, The Waylanders, Skull Tales Full Sail, Ratland, Yohei, which was canceled originally and then they came back and relaunched it, and then Nexum Galaxy. Now if we look at them over here, it's a card game, a fantasy fighting card game with card play, conflict resolution, hand management, and player elimination. Set in a fantasy world, Drums of War puts each player in charge of an army represented by an asymmetrical deck of cards led by a commanding hero. Cards are deployed on the battlefield in the form of units, equipment, or tactics, which decimate the deck for each action they perform. It feels a little bit to me like a game called Summoner Wars, if you've ever heard of that. But here we go. Let's take a quick look and see kind of what it looks like. So you've got a player mat. You've got, and I do like the kind of the way that they've got this mat with the colors and everything. It's very intuitive, I guess, the way it's designed here with the graphic design. But you've got this player mat in the middle. You've got player cards on either side, and these two players are going to be dueling it out. So it's a 1 to 2 player game. Plays in about 30 minutes. Let's go down further and look at some of the card art here. There you go. It's, in my opinion, this card art, it's a little busy, but the iconography still works. It's still clear. It's not terrible. If we look at this art, though, I mean, that's not the best art I've ever seen. It's fine. It's fine, but it's maybe just fine. Okay, so that's what that looks like. There's some of the card art. So it's a dueling game, right? It's a dueling game. It's got a playmat. It's got some card art. And that's about it. I think that's all we really need to see, really. I mean, hopefully that is enough for you to make a decision. I would like to do one thing, though, before I finish with this. So there's a game mat. The game mat that we've been seeing with the really, I think, intuitive and smart design there. There's some coins, upgrades to wooden tokens. There's sleeves, and we'll probably see this when we go over and look at the pledge prices in just a minute. But okay, so here is the designer, Proyecto Enigma, who's worked on the 2 GM games, and he is not listed. He's not credited here on Board Game Geek. But, here's some of what this looks like, right? I mean, here's some of lots of the cards, but here's what it looks like on the game mat. Now, if we look at Proyecto, the designer, it's quite a name. Proyecto Enigma. It feels like a made-up name. Okay, so Proyecto has worked on these 2 GM games. The 2 highest rated here are 2 GM Pacific and 2 GM Tactics. And if we look at these games, that's what it looks like. It's another card game. Let's see if I have a good shot of here's some of the cards for these. 2 GM, that's 2 GM Tactics, 2 GM Pacific. Okay, so this is 2 GM Pacific, right? Look familiar? I mean, it looks kind of like the game that we were just looking at. It also looks, again, kind of like Summoner Wars. So the reason that I bring your attention to this is simply to say that if you are interested in Drums of War, and now Drums of War is a 1 to 2 player game, so it is a head-to-head game. It does have that going for it. It's a specific card count. Let's see, 2 GM Pacific. That's a 1 to 4 player game. So although it's listed best at 2, but you can play it with 4 players. The reason I bring this up is if you are considering this Drums of War, not to pull anyone away from this particular campaign, but considering that this has a pretty good rating and looks very similar, and this maybe has more going on actually in the gameplay. 2 GM Pacific is a standalone expansion. All right, so it's an expansion to 2 GM Tactics, which is the game that we just looked at over here. But it can be just kind of played standalone, so you don't actually need this base game. But the thing I'm positing to you is, would you prefer this instead of backing Drums of War? I just want people, who are looking at this and thinking like, oh, this looks cool, I might want to get this. I just want to say, hey, before you go back this, same designer, this game exists, it's pretty well rated, it looks pretty similar, and maybe has a little bit more going on. This could be the better game. So just if you're considering this, maybe do a little homework and see if that other game is maybe what you want even more. But if you do decide on Drums of War, we've got some pledge levels here. There's an early bird for $21. And this has only got 5 hours left. So by the time I film this video, edit it, and get it uploaded, this probably will no longer be available as a price. They don't have the non-early bird price. They just go right to the all-in. So in 5 hours, my guess is that this will just disappear, and there'll be a different pledge that replaces this. There'll be several dollars more. But let's see. Where's the shipping? Okay, so shipping, and again, it's coming from Mexico, right? So it's not going to be cheap shipping. It's a smaller publisher. So if you were doing the early bird, you'd have a $21 pledge, and it'll be $18 in shipping, so it's $39, and shipping's almost the price of the game. With this pledge, you're also getting initiative metal coin, so 1 metal coin. But by the time you see this, the early bird is going to be gone, and this will be a little bit more expensive, and so you're probably looking at, I don't know, maybe $45 for this, about, almost half of which is going to be shipping. Then there's also this, just for 2 copies of the game, and that's an early bird as well, so that'll go up. Then we've got this all-in price, and this includes an exclusive book. stretch goals, which I'm assuming is probably like more scenarios, campaign type stuff. Did they list it up here? Where is your exclusive book? Is this Echoes of War? Is that what it is? Maybe the Echoes of War demo. The free book. Yeah, that's what it is. What do they say about that? To unlock Echoes of War, all you have to do is share this crowdfunding campaign on Facebook. Okay. You'll receive this book on the game's backstory as a gift. Okay, so it just kind of like tells you a backstory of the game, which lore is really what it is. So it's not really gameplay, it's just going to give you some additional lore in the game. You'll also be getting sleeves, the initiative metal coin, so that's the same, but sleeves are new at this all-in price. So is a playmat, so are the wooden markers. And then obviously those are all things that you can just add on separately if you only want some of them. But that would be, again, I think it's $18 for this as well. So you are looking at $67 for that pledge. And I think that's the highest one. Everything else is just kind of multiples. Now, it looks interesting to me, right? I mean, it's a 1 to 2 player kind of head-to-head dueling card game. It's got decent art, but maybe you want that instead. I'm just throwing it out there. Okay, same designer. Moving forward, we've got a game here called Lore Board Game. Now, this is the first game of the video that looks pretty interesting to me. And it definitely looks like it's stealing a little bit in its graphic design from Root. It's also a 4-letter game, kind of a fantasy setting. But I don't think from the game, from what we're going to look at this in a second. It doesn't feel like it's beholden to Root to me, even though it may take a little bit from it. It's got a funding goal here of $50,000 though, and they're at $11,000, which I say this a lot, but usually, and I think maybe I've misspoke in the past, but usually a game will do, I believe it's 2/3 of its business in the first 48 hours. I think in past videos I've said 24, but it's 48 hours. And then the last third of its business in the last 24 hours. And then in the middle, it doesn't usually do that much. I think because, people usually either, back immediately or they're interested, and then they'll just kind of wait. They'll wait while the campaign is going, and they'll kind of sit back and look at it, even if they're planning on backing, and then they'll kind of jump in at the end. It seems to be what most people do. They either back immediately or back at the end if they're planning to. But most people don't back in the middle of the campaign. It just seems to be the case. So we've got, again, a kind of a first-time designer here, first-time publisher, Joshua Delgadillo. And this is this game that he's produced. Now, if we go over here and we look at the game on Board Game Geek, I feel like he's done a pretty cool thing here, actually producing this game. But the sort of ace card up his sleeve seems to be this artist, Paulina Hanunaniemi, who is self-described an illustrator and a hermit from Finland. Instagram, Pohami. So let's just, what's a campaign we don't need? We don't need Doomlings anymore. Let's go to Instagram / this is the designer of all of the art for the game. I mean the artist for all the art of the game. And a lot of the art I think is on this artist page, but there's probably art here that is not from the game either. But look at this art, man. This is awesome stuff. I mean, this game I feel like could become a huge runaway hit just because of this art. And I don't know how, what's his name, Josh? I don't know how Josh found this artist. If he knows this artist or just kind of discovered her. I think it's a her, right? She? We don't know. Paulina. So maybe they, probably her. Who knows? We could say they. I don't know, how Josh found them, but I don't know if there's a personal connection is what I'm trying to say. But it seems like probably not, right? Because this person is, where did they say? It's like, I know I've seen it, from Finland. Okay. And Josh, if you go over here and look at this, I feel like I'm a stalker or something. Just kind of the work that I've done looking at this. So Josh is in Las Vegas. Name's Josh, a longtime lover of books and games. I have been a casino dealer for many years and I'm looking to kickstart my creative dream for board games with lore. It's like a fascinating story behind this. Josh from Las Vegas got this artist from Finland. I'm as curious in the story as I am in the game. And I've seen some pictures of Josh with this thing at some conventions and things. So, okay, let's get back into the case in point here. This is really cool art, right? This is awesome. This is amazing art. Lore is a thematic game of action selection, card play, dice rolling, and character building, sprinkled with seeds to grow your own story. We've crafted it with the utmost care, quality components, and a treasure trove of lavish art. Damn straight, that art is lavish. There's some stuff happening here with these like wooden markers, but this is a very, very simple game, gameplay-wise. So it's not like Root in that sense. You can see here some player boards. The player boards almost make it seem like there's more going on than there even is. But these player boards are awesome. You got your wooden markers there, these dice, some really cool cards with more of that spectacular art. And art by Paulina Hanuniemi. Okay. What I have noticed here. So on your turn, you're going to draw an event card. You're going to do some movement. You're going to take an action. And that's it. And there's a certain number of turns in this. But what I've noticed is that... Let's close out of some of the stuff that is no longer needed. Okay, what I've noticed is that, let's see. Okay, here's a picture kind of the game going on, being taught at conventions. It feels a lot, there you go, there's a good shot of the game, kind of what's happening. And I think if we look here, let's just go back to the front. Okay, so the description here says, Lore is a thematic game of action selection, card play, dice rolling, and character building sprinkled with seeds to grow your own story. Featuring beautiful components and a treasure trove of lavish art, Lore will charm with its adventures, characters, and storytelling. Players will forge their legends, playing as one of 4 mythic archetypes. Lore takes place over the course of 3 days or rounds. On each day, each player will take 4 turns. Each turn includes 3 phases: the event, movement, and action. Earn renown by completing quests. Each quest will have different requirements, such as seeking treasure or dueling fearsome monsters. The game ends when the last player has finished their night turn on the 3rd day. The player with the most renown wins. So, in looking through this, it just seems to me like this is very kind of a simple game, gameplay-wise, almost like Tokaido or Parks. I mean, there might be a little bit more going on, and there's some trackers and things like that, but I don't think this game is that involved. That is my point. It is not as involved as say, Root. You're going to be doing a very few kind of simple actions on your turn. It's all kind of built around these cards, and you're telling this kind of story as you play this game. And obviously, it features this amazing art that I think could really push this game. So if you're backing the game here, it is $59 and shipping in the US is $7. So $66 for the whole thing. Now, there are a bunch of these $700 pledges. Most of them are already gone. There's 2 left. These are one-offs. So what these are, if you're pledging at this level, is you're going to have a card, created in the game under your likeness, and then I believe that card will just be used throughout the game. So other people who back it will also get that card. I mean, that's why there's only, however many there were. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there are 5 total. There are 2 of them left. But this is just a way for them to make a bigger chunk of change from a smaller number of backers and give them the opportunity to have themselves drawn into the game. They obviously couldn't do that in a high volume, but for someone, that'll be really, really cool. And then those will just be 5 of the characters in the a game that are characters that people, sort of paid for through this campaign. But in general, if you're pledging the game, for most people, it's going to be $66 for the game. And I think the art looks really cool. Production, it's not just the art. I mean, the art's great, right? But the graphic design, the way things are put together and laid out, the wooden components, the tracker system, the dice, everything just is of a piece. It all looks really sharp, really smartly put together. I mean, I suppose in that case, in that aspect, you could also compare it to Root, just because there is a strong, unified design sense that's very smart, very clever, and just has a lot of intention behind it. And that's certainly not a bad thing. Leader Games, who does Root, they excel at that. They just have very smart overall design sense. But I think this is cool. I think the one thing maybe that they're missing, because they do have this tracker system on these boards, if they're not dual player boards, these trackers could move around quite a bit, if the table gets bumped. But in general, I'm really curious about this one. I think it looks really neat. I need to look at this one deeper. I need to look at the actual gameplay and watch some videos, but they're there. So please check these out. You've got one, Mark Streed from the Dice Tower takes a look at the game. Tantrum House has a playthrough. So there's stuff available to take a closer look at this and see if it's compelling enough to merit backing. But certainly the art and the design are would seem to indicate. There's no video here for me to play for you either, or I would. But overall, I think it looks great, and it looks like Josh, the casino dealer from Vegas, has seemingly hit it out of the park with this. Now the problem is, it's maybe not going to fund. So I don't know. We all need to take a look at this and watch some gameplay videos, and then I think if the gameplay looks as good as the production here is, we need to talk about this, because this, so far from what I've seen, this looks like a game that deserves to fund and would be good for everyone if it funded. But Joshua Delgadillo from Las Vegas, thanks for making lore. Good luck with it. You're definitely going to need a push here with this. Okay, next on our list is a game called Old Mage, the spell-blasting adventure game of arcane domination. Now, okay, $30,000, almost, for the funding goal. $5,800, so this is not going to fund. Campaign will end on April 4th. And let's see what we've got. It's being published by Pickpocket Press. And Pickpocket Press has produced in the past no real board games, just some Low Fantasy Gaming Deluxe Edition, Low Fantasy Gaming Companion, so some RPG type stuff, which I don't really include when I'm talking about board games, because it's a different beast. RPG stuff can just be, some books and, magazines and things like that. It doesn't have to have the same level of physical production behind it. So just because someone put out, an RPG module or book or something doesn't mean that they have the experience that they're going to need to do a full game. They've got an early bird here as well. I think I already said this. I mean, the problem is it's not going to back, but we're just going to quickly look through it anyway, because that's what I do on the crowdfunding roundup. And this will complete its campaign on April 4th, and it will deliver in December 2023, or, we'll see. Maybe it'll come back. Maybe it'll fail, come back, relaunch, and that'll succeed, and then it'll eventually deliver in December 2023 or a little bit later. Okay, so let's look at this. Here's my problem with this, because I know some things. I've already looked at these, so I know some things that we haven't really gotten to yet. Now, looking at this, right? I mean, there's some stuff happening on the board. If we go over here, let's see what they say. Let's see how it's described over on Board Game Geek. 2 to 6 player game. Adventure, dice, exploration, fantasy, fighting, negotiation. Mechanisms include action event, dice rolling, hand management, interrupts, negotiation, roll, spin, and move, variable player powers, and variable setup. I think when you're looking at the mechanisms, usually if it's something like area control or worker placement or tile placement, those are usually the central mechanic, and then there are other mechanics that function around that. In something like this, it's probably roll, spin, and move. And then there's action events and other things that kind of work with that, but it's probably roll, spin, and move, which gamers don't necessarily love. And then also, if you look at the components, I mean, nothing here is bad, but it's kind of all over the place, right? With these standees, they are acrylic standees, so that's good. But then you've got these tiles, and you got these dice, and these tokens, and these weird, these plastic pieces, and it's just a whole lot of mishmash components. And nothing by itself is bad, although it is, in my opinion, kind of on the lower end of the production scale. But when you throw all these kind of disparate elements together like this, they don't really combine that well. They don't create what looks to be like a cohesive game. So what seems to be a game with I don't know, just kind of lower production value, it almost looks lower yet when you throw together all these elements that just don't, like, none of them are that highly produced, and they're all a little bit different, and then you put them together, and it's just like, it's a weird kind of grab bag of stuff. Welcome to Old Mage, the spell-blasting adventure game of arcane domination. Explore ancient ruins, battle fierce monsters, invoke mighty spells, and unleash powerful relics as you compete for the High Wizard's throne. Terrible monsters and treacherous hazards await, yet none quite so terrible nor so treacherous as your arcane rivals. Claim victory in one of two ways. Find the Master Orb and deliver it to a mage tower across the Great River, or destroy your foes with spell, steel, and guile. But beware, old mages do not die quietly. They become haunts that plague the living, or return as undead liches. Is your sorcery strong enough, old mage? This actually, I think that's cool, that the enemies come back as, ghosts and liches. All right, lore I think we're done with for now. So if we take a look at this game, kind of on the table over here in their Kickstarter, we see some of these disparate production elements combined. And, it's not bad. I mean, taken separately, I like some of these components. But there's that shot right there. It's just everything together is kind of a vomitous mess of components. Unique mages, 6 mages, 1 wizard throne. I mean, there may be some very good ideas behind this game. So here's the gameplay. Move or camp? I mean, right? Doesn't it look weird when you've got these tiles and you've got these plastic pieces and then the dice come in and the acrylic standees? It's just a lot of stuff that looks strange together. Cast a spell from your hand. Boom, 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 boom. The fire tokens go down. Encounters. I mean, it's kind of a skirmishy game, right? But you're using all of these different things in the fighting. Draw a ruin card to reveal a boss monster or a unique spell. I don't know. I'm intrigued by this because it's such a kind of eclectic mix of stuff. But it also feels like they'd maybe do better to go back to the drawing board and just kind of create a package that feels more cohesive within itself. Okay, my chatter aside, let's look at the pledge prices. So there's an early bird, 24 hours left on this, and then from there, you've got your pledge here. This is the main pledge. So it'd be $71. And shipping, as this is our first board game Kickstarter, and given the eye-watering shipping costs to countries outside the USA, we are limiting shipping to the USA for this campaign. So they are in the US, and unlike some of the other people that we're looking at that are outside of the US, shipping here with really, really high shipping costs, they're not going to do it. They're only going to ship inside the US. So it's $13 to $18 is their estimate, which would make the pledge price $89. But as I've been saying from the beginning, I don't think this is going to fund. I mean, it would take a miracle at this point, considering where they're at and where they need to go. But I'm intrigued by the game. I think maybe they just need to, when this doesn't fund, go back, lick their wounds, learn a few lessons, and come back with a game that looks like it's the next iteration. Like, this feels very prototypey, where they're kind of using different disparate elements. So maybe they need to go back and refine it a little bit, and then it'll fund better. Okay, moving on here. We've got One Card Dungeon MacGuffin Returns. Now, this has a funding goal of $105. They're at 1,000, so they've funded. This will complete its campaign on April 11th, and the publisher here is called Little Rocket Games. This is out of Italy, and as we can see, they've only run a few campaigns before. They did this Rune, and then they did this Blue Collection. And one of the games in this Blue Collection, as you can see, was One Card Dungeon. Then they did a couple other games, Hens, Black Dragon's Guild, and now they've come back and said, hey, One Card Dungeon did really well. Let's do a new campaign for that. So that's where we're at with this campaign. And One Card Dungeon is exactly what it sounds like. It is a dungeon crawler played in one card, which is kind of ingenious. But it's also very small. And so, take that into account when you're considering backing this. Now, let's look at the prices first. So they've got a print and play price for $4. And then they've got another one for $7. The difference is that the first one is MacGuffin Returns, this new expansion, and the original includes the base game. But they're just one card, right? And then for $11, you could do the print and play, which includes two of their other games, the other ones from that campaign that One Card Dungeon was originally a part of. Now, why this is clever is because you're going to be playing on this one card, and if you look down in this quadrant, you see the 1, 5, and 9, and in this you see 3, 7 and 11. So you've got a card here that essentially has 4 sides because there's a back to it. So you can flip it so that either one of these two corners is down here. This would essentially be, this one here means as we're looking at this is dungeon level 1. If you were to flip the card over, you're going to be looking at dungeon level 2. Then if you were to flip it back to this side and kind of rotate it 180 degrees so that the other corner comes down, that would be dungeon level 3. Then if you were to flip it to the backside, you'd have dungeon level 4. Now you're going to repeat that 3 more times, and you're going to go through 12 dungeon levels. And you've got dice here to represent the hero, dice to represent some enemies. The enemies will be different depending on which side of the card is facing you, because in one version you've got spiders, and the other one you've got, I think those are like orcs, and I'm not sure what's in the back. But you've got different floors of dungeons, and then these will repeat. So you'll be fighting spiders in floors 1, 5, and 9, and orcs in 3, 7, and 11. And then for the 2 different floors that are on the other side, 3 levels each, you're going to be fighting those things. So you're going to go through each fourth of the card 3 times, and then if you make it through all of that, you will have gone through 12 levels of dungeon crawler. You're going to beat the monster dice with the hero dice, and then you've got stats that you can upgrade with these other dice. It's kind of ingenious, but it's still, it's one card that's substituting in for 12 different levels of a dungeon crawler. But if we look at the price over here, I mean, it's cheap, right? It's like a cup of coffee. So this is something that you can buy. I think some of the variability comes in the fact that you can play different classes, and because you're using dice, there will be some variability, in how you play this. You have like kind of points for movement, but it's a super small, super compact, really mini. I don't necessarily want to call it a filler game. It's its own thing, right? I mean, it's a puzzle game, and it's small and compact, and maybe part of the appeal here is that you can take it traveling and play it very easily places, but it's not a deep, vast game. It is literally a one-card dungeon. So, yeah. But it's clever, right? I mean, the design's kind of clever. And there's some videos here if you wanted to watch these that talk about it. This is Edo's game previews. He is the designer of Skull Hollow. But he also does some game review videos. Okay. So that is One Card Dungeon. This is the expansion, MacGuffin Returns. Obviously, you can still get the base game through it. And as print and plays go, it's, you know, it's print and play prices. So it's cheap. And there is no physical component here, which is why this campaign is so cheap. And the funding goal is so low. So that is One Card Dungeon. Moving on, we've got Point City and Deep Dive. And if you weren't interested in lore, then this might be the next campaign that I think most people will want to take a look at. Now, this is for two different games from Flat Out Games, who have done some fairly popular games. One of those games is called Point Salad, and Point City is definitely sort of a spiritual sequel to Point Salad. It's got the same designers here, Molly Johnson, Robert Melvin, Sean Stankovich. Flat Out Games has had some big hits in the last couple of years with Calico, Cascadia, and Verdant. And Fit to Print, they just did a campaign for that recently. 10 is one of theirs. Okay, but they've got here through this campaign Point City and then Deep Dive. So there's two different games involved in this. Now, they've got a funding goal of $8,000. They're currently at $113,000, so they're funded. This thing's doing gangbusters. This is probably the safest bet of this video, this campaign. I think this is probably like your most mainstream, most well-produced game with a known publisher that has a good track record, where you know you're going to get a pretty good game or games, and they're going to be decently produced. And yeah, I think this is just the best overall thing. Now, it's a little light for my taste. I do own Calico, Cascadia, and Verdant. But Point City and Deep Dive, I think, are lighter than those games, and these are their past campaigns. I don't know if this is going to be one for me, but I think there's a lot of appeal to both of these. So, okay. So they say, Point City is a follow-up to the smash hit card game Point Salad. It is a fast and fun card drafting, engine building game for 1 to 4 players. There are over 150 unique building cards, so you can create a completely different city each and every time you play. Now, the way this is going to work is that you're going to draft any 2 cards from this grid in the middle, and I believe they need to be adjacent to each other, and then you'll use those cards. They could both be resources, so you'll just get resources, or one of them could be a building card, and then you're creating sort of a tableau of buildings. Someone on here in a soundbite compares it to Point Salad crossed with Splendor. The rules are simple. Select 2 adjacent cards from the dynamic city grid and add them to your expanding city. Point City takes the same simple concept of drafting cards and building the best combinations from Point Salad and adds new layers of resource management and engine building to the mix, making the game familiar and easy to learn but challenging for everyone. I mean, I think if you're looking for, a very simple, light, yet compelling engine builder, here it is. It's Splendor meets Point Salad. Dwayne from Blackboard Gaming. Easy to set up, and you can get a few games in an hour. I love the way the market fluctuates. And then their other game here, Deep Dive, is a push your luck game. You're going to have penguins on these little tiles that you're going to be flipping over. Turns are simple. Flip over an ocean tile and see what you reveal. Take what you reveal in the shallows or dive deeper, hoping for a larger catch. I mean, the components look great. I think Flat Out does a really good job at creating well-produced, pretty-looking games on sort of a budget. I mean, they're not spending a ton of money to produce these games, but they look good for what they are. Okay. Deep Dive. Where are you, Deep Dive? All right, so here's kind of the gameplay of Point Salad, right? Draft any 2 adjacent cards, construct a building, refill the market. Boom, that's all you do. And then here's Deep Dive. So there are going to be these tiles that you've got your penguins on. So if you encounter a tile, you flip it and it's open water, you have to keep going. If you encounter either a rock or food, you could keep going. Take the rock to skip a depth on a later turn. So that'll allow you to advance, I guess. And then food, you can either take the food you get or try to keep going and maybe get some better food. But if you end up with a predator, your turn ends and you lose a penguin. So, that's it, though. And then you're just collecting kind of sets of food. So super simple. But those are those 2 games. Games our team members have helped bring to life, right? Fit to Print is the most recent. Then they did Verdant, Cascadia, and Calico. Dollars to Donuts was in there. I think some of the same designers worked on Dollars to Donuts because that was by Crafty Games, not Flat Out. And Point Salad was published through AEG, but now this is Point City being done through Flat Out. Same designers as Point Salad, but obviously it has a little bit more going on with the engine building. They also did Truffle Shuffle through AEG, 10 was through AEG, and a couple of earlier games. And the artist on these is Dylan Mangini. So, yeah, if you like light games, I would think this is a must-back. I just think for me it's a little... I'm not really into these I'll play them, I'll have fun with them, but these aren't games I'm really looking to add to my collection. And there's a lot of... if you go through here, there's a lot of really good content creators who have made videos on this, so you totally have your pick of who to watch. But this is... I think out of all the campaigns in here, this is the only one I would really kind of unabashedly recommend, saying there's very little risk and you can't go wrong. Okay, so pledge levels. Whoops. So they've got a print and play level. If you just want to get print and plays for both games, it's $10. If you're going for the... Let me just get down to shipping here. Shipping estimates. Okay, so you're looking at, they say here you pay, this is the US, continental US, any one or both games discounted rate. So they're estimating shipping is actually going to cost them $16, but they're subsidizing that. So you will pay $9, but that's essentially your shipping for up to two different games, up to if you pledge something that gives you both games. So the print and play, as we said, is 10. If you want to order either game separately, just that game, you'll get the game itself. You'll also get a promo pack, and you'll get the print and play files and some upgrades and things. And either game separately is $19, or with shipping, it's going to be $28. If you get both together, which is this Point City plus Deep Dive Kickstarter editions, you're still only paying $9 shipping, so it's going to be $44 for the 2-game bundle. And again, you're getting the promo packs and the print and play files. And then we go up from there. There's things that include multiple copies of the game. And as you do that, your shipping is going to be a little more expensive. But those are the pledge prices. Obviously, super affordable as games go. And, solid designers with a track record, publisher with a track record. They're putting out a game here that's not going to be super expensive to produce, yet it still looks good. And if you're into lighter games, I think this campaign is a real winner. Moving forward, we've got Reflections in the Looking Glass, a Wonderland card game. This one has a $4,000 goal. They're at $640, so likely not going to fund. It's going to complete its campaign on April 28th, if it does happen to get there. It is by a first-time designer and publisher here, J. Ryan Opp. And let's see. Let's take a look at this one over on Board Game Geek. Okay. So this is a 2-player abstract strategy card game. This is not a terrible design here. I think there's something going for it, which is that they're using this tableau, which is kind of like Seven Wonders Duel. And the way this is going to work is when you're drafting, cards, which is what you're going to do. It's going to work like Seven Wonders Duel, where you can pick any card that is sort of open to you. So on this first tier, and then as you start taking these cards and exposing the cards that are deeper down, you'll be able to choose those as well. Now, what makes this a little bit different is that it's a dueling game, yes, but you can take any of the exposed cards on your side or the player's side, and then you're also going to be taking the card that is the mirror side, the mirror image of it, and giving that card to your opponent. So someone's getting one card, someone's getting the mirror, the card on the other side, the mirror image side of it, and you get to choose which card goes to who. So you could be taking the card on your opponent's side, they could be taking the card on your side, and then they'll take a card. And it works largely on these icons that are on the cards. There are these suns and moons, and you want to get odd numbers of suns, so either 1 or 3 numbers of suns, but even numbers of moons. So, even numbers of moons will score you points, odd numbers of suns will score you points, but even numbers of suns or odd numbers of moons will score you negative points. So it's just a very simple little card collecting dueling game with this weird kind of mirror image mechanic. And you're just, taking cards and competing for points. So I feel like it's a clever little design. I don't know how much longevity this is going to have, really. But I think the initial idea has some merit behind it. So pledging the game, it will be $12 to pledge it. Shipping is $6, so $18. And then there's just, multiple copies. So it's a pretty simple card game themed around Alice in Wonderland. And it's not breaking the bank or anything. But I don't... It's got a low enough funding goal that I think it wouldn't take... if you've got a funding goal that's like hundreds of thousands of dollars, then it's kind of harder to shift that, if you haven't funded enough, it's hard to make that shift. Like it's a whole wave that you need to sort of push in the other direction. While that's, it's true here that the percentage-wise, they're still at a low number, they don't need that much to fund, right? So a certain number of backers, a surge in backers, will get them over this lower overall number than it would take, for a game with a huge number. That makes sense, right? That's not rocket science. So they could still get there. They just need a surge. Whereas if your game had, a $300,000 funding goal, it's going to take more than, 100 people backing it to get there. So anyway, that is Reflections in the Looking Glass, kind of a variation on Seven Wonders Duel and themed around Alice in Wonderland. Okay. This next one is by... I love people. And this guy who's designed this is kind of a mad genius, it looks like. So he's designed this game called Scharz, Complex War Euro board game. Now, if we look at it over here on Board Game Geek, you'll see there's a part 1, there's a part 2, there's a part 3. They're all listed as 2022 releases. And then there's the main version of the game. So here's the designer here, Jacob Kunzik. He's designed this war game for 2 to 12 players. It is heavy. It's got a complexity rating of 4.5. It is a war Euro strategic skirmish. An ancient economic territory building war game with mechanisms like area movement, area impulse, automatic resource growth, dice rolling, income, market, movement points, negotiation, re-rolling and locking, trading, variable phase order, and worker placement is probably the most basic of these, kind of the unifying mechanism here. But if we look at this and the design of this is like super homegrown, right? Now he's got a funding goal of $17,500. He's at $3,300, so I mean it doesn't seem like it's going to fund. I'm just impressed by this whole thing. Now, it's a little, like I was talking about a different campaign, this video, some of the elements here are a little disparate. But this is like one guy who's been making this in his garage, it feels like, for 4 years. Yeah, the 4 years of development interrupted by 10 months of COVID. Campaign is designed to be sustainable. We are starting by making Scharz Part 1 available. The game is independently playable, includes a 4-player set, 2 maps, Britannia 410 AD and Italia 290 BC, and 4 game modes. Now here's kind of a look at it. Complex, but not complicated. And you can see, let's see, where is this? Where is he at? Czechia. I mean, some of the where they've got like apostrophes and commas and things feels European, obviously, because it is. Scharz is a complex war economy board game with no hidden information and simultaneous play. The game resembles Skirmish from RTS computer games of the aughts. Each player will take on the leadership role of one of the factions, and over the course of up to 5 years will attempt to use the power vacuum to improve their faction's geopolitical position. The player must cleverly develop both the economic and military sides of their empire and the art to tip the balance in the region in their favor. The game provides infinite replayability through a wide range of tactics, counter-tactics, extreme strategies, self-destructive battles, and the ability to defeat economically stronger players. Each map is different, and each additional player multiplies the number of possible interactions. In such an environment, competition reigns supreme and skill wins. Now, there's some art here which looks, a little evocative of something like Scythe, which is also a war game, although that's really kind of prettied up and dressed up. I mean, I feel like this guy's a mad genius, as I've said. And the components feel kind of prototypey, but I still kind of like it. I don't know, man. It has this kind of 70s component feel, like Playmobil. I'm like fascinated by this, I must say. But it does have a prototypey feel. It kind of feels like, if they'd produced Scythe as a much deeper, much more involved war game in Europe, maybe designed in his garage by someone like a European Bill Gates making a board game in his garage. I mean, it feels like it's like the Cones of Dunshire, really, as a war game. But I don't know. I don't know if anyone wants to back this who's watching this video, and I mean, I don't think I will either, but I am really intrigued by this, and I feel like the guy who created this, I want him to succeed, because there's like genius afoot here. He probably just needs to create something on a higher production level, and to make this a little bit more unified looking. He's got different maps here, but I'm kind of in love with this. Now, they talk about this upgrade pledge. And he says here, there's a pre-production version, and there's 49 games in circulation. So I don't know who's bought these or who he's given these to, but obviously while he's been working on this, he's sold some of these pre-production games. So there is the first pledge level here that is for these 49 people who are just out there in the world somewhere. They could pledge this and get an upgrade to the current version of the game. And for the rest of us, we could pledge this, Scharz Part 1, for $85. It's going to deliver in October 2023. And the shipping on this is where? Where do we see shipping? It's just, it's got a lot going on. Obviously, I'm paging through all this. It's got a lot going on. Probably a rule set. Okay, so here's the shipping. It's like 15 euros. So if we put that in, where's the US? That is the US. Okay, so 15 euros. So we put this into the 79. That would be 94 euros, which would be $100 even for this thing. Now, that's for Scharz Part 1, right? So Scharz Part 2 is basically more maps. So the game includes 2 maps of Vikings and Typhus. The first one here is Britannia and Italia, and then part 3 is Huns and Orient. So my guess is if this actually funds and does well, he'll come back and do those kind of expansion maps as additional Kickstarters down the line. But this first one would get you the first 2 maps. Obviously, it's like kind of a super homegrown, sort of self-produced war game, and it's probably not for everyone. It would do a lot better, I'm sure, if they had some major publisher behind it who cleaned it up and made it look prettier and maybe made the rule set more accessible. But I think you can't deny that the guy behind this, maybe you can deny it. I probably should, look at the rules and learn it first before I state something like this. But it feels like the guy behind this is a brilliant genius who self-produced this very compelling game. Okay. Anyway, that's Scharz. I have a feeling that too many people are going to actually back this just because it's kind of archaic, I guess. Yet brilliant. And it's not going to fund unless a lot of people discover this, right? It's just not going to make this. But I don't know. Maybe he'll go back to the drawing board. Maybe through this campaign, he'll realize he needs to make it look more accessible and maybe do something more with the pages to kind of better sell this. Because I have a feeling that there's a fantastic game behind this. And the part of me that likes crazy complicated things is really intrigued by this, but that's probably not everybody. So anyway, that's Scharz. We've got 3 left here, so let's kind of move through these. This is Sidney's Quest. It's got a $17,000 funding goal. They're currently at $3,500. Probably not going to fund. It's not going to fund, let's be honest. But the campaign will end on April 9th. It's by 5 O'Clock Games, which is a first-time publisher. And it's doing this... it's got an interesting art look to it. And it's sort of, I think it's a worker placement game. Sidney's Quest, here we go. A worker placement board game about beating your friends to the cushiest job in the village. Get ready, keep your resources under control, and strive for Sidney's favor. Sidney's Quest is played over 8 rounds. Each round you focus on a combination of actions to gather new experiences while being able to pay your bills. You get points for every goal card you complete, and lose points for the ones you don't succeed with. Economic fantasy game with action drafting, contracts, hidden victory points, income, open drafting, turn order claim action, turn order progressive, variable phase order, and worker placement. Now, if we look at the actual components here, there's some really fascinating games that have launched this week. They may not be games that everyone wants to back, but there's some fascinating stuff going on here. There's some designers, I think, who are trying some different things in one way or another, either the design or kind of the sorts of production. So this is what the game board looks like for this. There's these player boards, some tokens and things. Now, if you look at this GIF here, there's these cool dials on these player boards that kind of track things. And you're going to be taking these worker placement actions. The board's interesting. These this tree and this stuff. Now, it doesn't really give you a great look at the game, unfortunately. There's a couple of videos. Let's see where they're in Sweden. Okay. We've had some really interesting... I was going to say European designers, but it's not everything's European, right? There's been some interesting projects from all around the world. I think there was one from Mexico early on. Okay, so the core pledge here is $50. With shipping, where's shipping? US, so 16, so $66 for the core pledge. And that's really it. There's another pledge for 2 copies of the game. So, yeah. I don't know. This is intriguing to me. I don't think this is something that I personally would back. But I'm kind of interested to take a closer look at this. That's probably the best look that we're going to get, just in terms of this board, the various cards. There's kind of worker placement elements going on here. Again, I think this might be a case of something that needs a little more production value behind it. In its current state, it looks like something between a prototype and maybe a light Euro you'd have seen like maybe 15 years ago. But I'm curious about it. But it's not going to fund, I don't think. No. 3,600 of a 17,000 funding goal? Don't think so. But that's Sidney's Quest. Okay. Then we've got this game called Thrown Under the Bus. And don't play the video because it has an intensely annoying theme song. Giving you some fair warning. So they've got a $20,000 funding goal. They're at $7,600. It's not going to fund. It's by this first-time designer, James Cole. He's created a game about office politics. And essentially how this works is you've got this game mat in the beginning, game mat in the middle that is, sort of a boardroom, so it's your point trackers. And then you've got these player mats. And it's got some deck building going on. So you're going to start your round with a hand, and then players are going to take turns putting down cards either on their player mats or on opponents' player mats. And then once that kind of phase is done, players will take turns revealing. And they'll get resources for cards on their mats. Occasionally, if you place something on someone else's mat, it might sabotage them and cause them to lose points. You can basically not show up to work for a day. The 5 cards are supposed to kind of represent the 5 days of the work week. So you could not show up to work one day and kind of go out and learn another skill and essentially recruit like a new card into your hand. This is just a very, very, very simple deck builder. And it's got some take that in the way that you can be playing these cards to other players' player boards. But essentially, you're just putting these cards down on your board, sometimes on your opponents, and then when you reveal them, you get resources. And it's super, super simple. And the art obviously is not anything extravagant. I don't think I'm going to go into it more than this. This is not something that I'd really recommend. It's just it's thin for what it is. It's pretty thin gameplay wise, and I think there is some cleverness to the to the sabotage that you're doing to each other and the office politics theme. $30 for the game. There's the rule set right there. So it's on the page if you wanted to look at it. But $30 for the game. Shipping is... Where is it listed? Here we go, $12. So it's $42 for the game. And that's it. There's some higher pledge levels. Just, you get your name on a card, stuff like that. Vanity rewards. You are written into the game, basically, but it's just a way of them making some extra cash. But it's basically $42 for the game, and I think it's a little thin, shall we say. And it's not going to fund. Okay, the final campaign of the week is for Townsfolk Tussle. Now, next to the Flat Out Games campaign for Point City and Deep Dive, this is probably I don't know. They've only had one game, Townsfolk Tussle, but it did such a good, it funded so well that people now recognize this. They know this. They know the game. And so this is probably the biggest campaign of this video, other than Point City. The Vintage Co-op Boss Battler is back with 2 expansions and a reprint. So they had a funding goal of $100,000. They're already over $500,000. Now, this box right here is the base game. They've got these 2 expansion boxes. The publisher here is called Panic Roll, and when they did Townsfolk Tussle, there's 3 of them that are involved in this company, and they were the designers and I believe also the artists. But that was their first game, And this has gotten some comparisons to Kingdom Death Monster, but a much simpler take on that with this kind of like vintage, old-timey art, but yet, extreme and bloody and horrific. And I think it captured the imagination of a lot of people, a lot of backers. And it's, on the one hand, it's fairly well produced. Like, the minis are kind of impressive. I mean, the card art is really amazing for what it is. You get a look at this. There's a lot going on in this game. There are some aspects of it that maybe aren't as well produced. Just certain things, like player boards and things that, let's say they're not dual layered, which is fine. But considering how well they kind of managed to do with some of the game, there are a few aspects of it that are kind of surprising, I think. But the biggest hurdle or criticism, I guess, you'd make of this is that I don't actually know anyone who thinks this is a good game. And I actually have a copy of this that I backed. And I want to play this soon to see if I should be getting the expansions or not, just because I'm really intrigued by it. I think it looks really cool. It doesn't have like a big campaign like Kingdom Death Monster. It is designed to be played more in one-offs, and it is designed to be accessible and to appeal to casual gamers and non-gamers. But it's this kind of boss battler with this old-timey art, kind of pre-code. Now, there are 2 expansions for this. Let's see. Dual layer player patches costume ads. That's good. Okay, 2 Townsfolk minis. Right. So that's the new expansion. I've just kind of already scrolled through it. Let's go back up. So this is called Foul Neighbors. So it's going to have some new ruffians in the game here. And then it just has a whole lot of stuff, right? Dual layer patches costume mat, dual layer Townsfolk player mats, a couple of Townsfolk minis, and a lot of extra cards. 120 Ruffian action cards, 7 more starting gear, 24 Ruffian gear, 30 plus unique gear, 16 secret gear, character tokens, 2 town events, 80 plus tokens, 13 terrain cards, assorted terrain pieces. Also standees. So you can always, if you don't get the minis, you can play the standees. And then there's another expansion, but this one is more focused on the gear. So it has 30 bottom barrel peddler gear, 120 plus unlockable peddler gear, 20 tarot sized roll cards. So that's the other thing, are these kind of roll cards and gear with this other expansion. Peddler's journal, sticker sheet, some deployable tokens, and then they've kind of done a revamped edition of the original game. Inside the box, like a game trays kind of a thing. I don't know that it's game trays, it's just a storage system with trays, and you can hold everything in there. Here's the minis. Okay, so if you have not backed this before and you just want to get the base game, the new base game, you're looking at $105. And then shipping is not inexpensive on this. Let's just go down to shipping. Boy, there's a lot of videos that have been made. Okay, so shipping for the base game is $30, so $135 for that. If you are just getting the new stuff, the 2 expansions, they are $115, or with shipping, $148. And then if you want both things, the 2 new expansions and the new second edition of the game, you're looking at, with shipping, $261. Then there was a higher pledge level that included your name on the side of the base game box and some pins and things like that. So it's not a cheap game. And unfortunately, although I own it, I pledged it the first time around, I haven't played it yet. So I cannot give you my own opinions, although I do want to get it to the table very soon, and if I do, I'll be talking about it, but I can't guarantee that's going to happen before this campaign ends. There are a lot of content creators who have created videos. However, because you know, I think this game and its design and look have captured a lot of people's imaginations. You may see videos that are sort of glowing in their coverage just because of the design and the experience. The question is, do people think the gameplay is good? And that has been harder for me to find out. And the people that I know who have played it think that no, the gameplay's not that great. Let's just take a look at the video, though, because why not? Let's get a closer look at this. So you've got this art style that's kind of like circa the 20s, but, you know, twisted. Alright, so, I mean, that gives you an idea, at least, of the art and the gameplay, and I will do my best to get this thing played and report back to you, like in the video, the Friday edition before this funds. So let's see, this is April 6th, so whatever the date is, you know, the Friday before that, when this is going to be funding, I will do my best to get this played so that I can talk about it before it funds and let you know that if I think that the gameplay is worthwhile or not, because that's my biggest worry, and I just want to pass along that to you. And there's so much appealing about this, just in terms of the look and the aesthetic and the kind of brilliance behind doing a boss battler in this style, that there's a lot of, you know, positivity and effusive praise about this, I think, based on excitement for that kind of design. And well-deserved, I think, right? I mean, that alone has created quite an amount of fervor around this game and around this campaign. But I think the bigger question is the gameplay, and that is the harder question to have answered, and the people that I know don't have a good answer. and I've heard some negative things about it. So I will attempt to get this played and report back to you my personal experiences with it before this thing funds. Hopefully I'll have the time to do that. Anyway, those are the 12 campaigns for this week. Thank you very much for joining me and spending some time with me looking at these. I hope you either found something to your liking or were maybe steered away from something that you're glad you didn't back, or you just were entertained by the video and the content and looking through these campaigns. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll be back in another couple days with a video looking at the games, the campaigns that launched on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. Until then, take care, play lots of great games, and I'll see you very soon.